High-performance partitions can be created using simple, cost-effective construction methods with Fermacell. The location of the studwork is transferred from the plan to the floor using a chalk line or laser level. Doorways and any other special framing requirements are marked on the floor at this stage. A resilient layer should be installed between the tracks, end studs and other backgrounds to avoid flanking sound transmission. U-channels, also known as base and head tracks, are fixed to the floor and ceiling using suitable fixings. The distance between the fixings should be no more than 600mm. The vertical fixings for the C-studs that adjoin other partitions or substrates should be no more than 600mm. In small properties, a plumb line or spirit level is sufficient for determining the line of the wall. These distances must be reduced if the wall is uneven. The head track is marked out and fixed to the ceiling along the line of the partition using suitable fixings at 600mm centres. The studs and tracks are easily cut using tin snips or in batches using a metal cutting circular saw. The remaining vertical studs can now be positioned. They are left floating and not fixed to the tracks. Accurate alignment occurs when the boards are installed. The vertical separation between studs is 400mm for 10mm Fermacell and 600mm for 12.5mm Fermacell. The U-channel and C-studs must not be fixed together. It's important that the studs float freely within the channels. The C-studs should always be cut short of full height by 5 to 10mm. This way, tight tolerances and subsequent movement can be accommodated. Doors can be inserted at any point in a Fermacell wall. The door frame should be reinforced. Full height timber length can be used to strengthen and support the door frame. The door head is formed by cutting a piece of the U-track and overlapping the vertical C-stud by a minimum of 200mm. Fix in place with 2 screws each side. Position a stud to provide support for the board edge at door heads, as the joint should not be along the line of the door frame. Fermacell boards can be cut on site by simply scoring the board and snapping off the excess. The board is scored with a rigid scoring blade, for example a Fermacell knife, and then snapped off. Alternatively, the boards can be cut using a handsaw, jigsaw or circular saw with dust extraction. Cuts around doors are easily created by notching the boards as shown. Ensure that the joint is moved away from the high stress areas at the corners of doors and windows. For steel studs, the boards are only screwed to the vertical studs and never to the horizontal channels. Alternatively, at doorways, the boards can be fitted and the excess removed by cutting along the head track and scoring and snapping down the vertical stud. The same general principle applies to fixing timber stud work. Boards are fixed vertically to the studs. The board length corresponds to the room height with a 5 to 10mm gap at the top and bottom of the partition. Boards can be screwed or stapled. The vertical distance between the fixings should be no more than 250mm when using screws and 200mm when staple fixing. Fermacell joint stick adhesive is applied to the edge of the fixed board as a 3mm continuous bead. A board lifter is then used to close the joint to no more than 1mm wide when jointing the boards with Fermacell joint stick. Because of the density of Fermacell boards, they must be fixed using Fermacell self-countersinking screws. Standard drywall screws are not recommended. The adhesive cures in about 12 hours. The excess adhesive is then simply removed with a decorator's scraper. The joints can then be dressed and screw heads filled using Fermacell joint filler. The Fermacell boards are then ready for papering or tiling. Alternatively, when not using joint stick, boards should be fixed leaving a gap of 5 to 7mm. The Fermacell boards should be fixed 10mm in from the board edge and 50mm from corners. Horizontal joints should be backed using an offcut of Fermacell boards and stapled or screw fixed to the face layer. The joints and fixings are then filled with Fermacell filler, ready for finishing. When using Fermacell tapered edge boards, the joints are reinforced by using a paper or mesh joint tape. When using mesh tape, ensure that the Fermacell joint filler is pushed firmly into the V at the centre of the taper. Alternatively, a paper joint tape can also be applied, then filled and dressed with a second coat of Fermacell joint filler if required, before the application of fine surface treatment. Where a Fermacell partition meets different substrates, a 3 to 5mm gap should also be left to allow for differential movement. A flexible acrylic compound can be used to fill the gap. At the junction of Fermacell partitions, the joint filler can either be left flush or can be overcoated with a paper jointing tape and joint filler, then feathered in when the fine surface treatment is applied. For a skim plaster type finish, fine surface treatment is used. The face of the board is completely covered and the excess is immediately removed, leaving a final coat of between 0.5 to 1mm thick. The fine surface treatment bonds onto the surface and dries within 45 minutes. Fermacell partitions have been tested to meet building regulations for fire and acoustic performance. Fermacell partitions can be used where ecological performance and considerations are required. It's important to ensure that on steel stud systems, Fermacell boards are installed symmetrically on the same studs. For example, the joints appear opposite each other. Where horizontal joints occur, these should be offset by a minimum of 200mm to prevent cross joints. Corner details and intersections are simple to form. It's not necessary to use additional stud work in these areas. A 5mm fully threaded wood screw in a 12.5mm Fermacell board can support 30 kg. With a cavity fixing, a 12.5mm Fermacell is able to support 50 kg. When conventional dry lining techniques are no longer considered adequate, the strength and durability of Fermacell provides the real alternative. Whatever your requirements, there is a simple and effective Fermacell option.